The crisis in Venezuela under Nicolás Maduro's regime becomes even more concerning when viewed through the lens of global geopolitics and the war between Russia and Ukraine. Maduro's alignment with Vladimir Putin is not merely a reflection of ideological affinities but also part of a broader strategy to strengthen alliances against the West. In this context, recent events, such as the siege of the Argentine Embassy in Caracas and the growing militarization along Venezuela's borders, play a key role in a global chessboard marked by polarization. The siege of the Argentine Embassy, symbolically significant as it is controlled by the Brazilian government, is more than a violation of international norms. It is a strategic move echoing the methods of pressure and intimidation often associated with authoritarian regimes allied with Moscow. The repression of any sign of opposition, whether internal or externally supported, reflects Maduro's attempt to solidify his power while openly challenging the West and its principles of democracy and human rights. This act takes place at a time when Russia is seeking allies on multiple fronts to resist sanctions and the isolation imposed by the United States and the European Union. Venezuela, with its strategic oil reserves and geopolitical position in the Western Hemisphere, is a vital piece in Russia's strategy. Maduro's alliance with Putin goes beyond anti-imperialist rhetoric. It is reinforced by military cooperation agreements, arms sales, and political alignments that support a narrative of resistance to Western imperialism. Meanwhile, Brazil's cautious silence and Argentina's energetic yet limited stance highlight Latin America's difficulties in dealing with a conflict that transcends its borders. Brazil's inertia can be interpreted as a desire to avoid becoming involved in a dispute that would inevitably place it in conflict with Russia and, by extension, China, which also maintains close ties with Maduro's regime. Argentina, while condemning Maduro's actions, faces the challenge of balancing its critical position toward the Venezuelan regime with the need to preserve regional stability. The European Union and the United States, closely monitoring developments, view the crisis in Venezuela as another stage in the global confrontation between Western democracies and authoritarian regimes. Just as in Ukraine, where Russia's invasion is widely seen as a direct challenge to the international order, Venezuela represents another test of the West's ability to contain the expansion of authoritarian regimes and their strategic alliances. The militarization of Venezuela's borders, particularly with Colombia and Guyana, adds a layer of complexity. Maduro's aggressive rhetoric regarding the dispute over the Essequibo territory mirrors Russia's justifications for annexing Crimea and invading Ukraine, historical territorial claims that mask expansionist ambitions and consolidate domestic power. The construction of military bases near Guyana's border can be seen as a warning, both to regional neighbors and to Western countries, that Maduro will not hesitate to follow Putin's example. On the global stage, Maduro's alliance with Russia also offers strategic advantages for Putin, who can use Venezuela as a base to influence politics in Latin America and directly challenge U.S. hegemony in the Western Hemisphere. The presence of allies like Cuba and Bolivia reinforces this network of influence, expanding the operational field of the authoritarian bloc. The Venezuelan crisis, therefore, transcends the boundaries of Latin America and ties into the global struggle between authoritarianism and democracy. For the West, dealing with Maduro means not only supporting the Venezuelan opposition but also weakening one of Putin's allies at a time when the conflict in Ukraine consumes resources and attention. The escalation in Venezuela can be seen as an attempt by Maduro to consolidate his domestic position and test the limits of the West while providing symbolic and practical reinforcement to Putin's ambitions on the global stage. Whether through economic sanctions, support for the opposition, or diplomatic pressure, the West's response to the Venezuelan crisis will signal its willingness to confront the expansion of authoritarian alliances in an increasingly polarized world. Venezuela is not just a humanitarian and political crisis, it reflects the emerging global order shaped by the clash between liberal democracies and authoritarian regimes.